Hello, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 56. In this episode, I want to give you a big virtual hug and provide you with a whole bunch of reassurance. And in particular, 3 things that I want you to remember when you hear that horrible 2-letter word, no, on a sales call. So whether you engage in your sales conversations through a Zoom discovery call or you speak with prospects on the phone, or whether you engage in prospect conversations through email or direct message, there is an inevitability at some point, whether it's the first sales conversation that you ever have, or whether it is the 157th sales conversation that you've had, that you will hear no. And the first thing that I want you to remember is that that is completely normal. This episode is inspired by one of my clients inside of our signature program, Consistent Clients, where we help wellness experts to attract consistent clients and build out their expertise and offerings and marketing system. And having done so much deep thinking and so much deep work around her niche and clarifying her message in the marketplace, this particular member of our program came to me and she said, "Lauren, I've just had my first sales call and the response from that prospect was no. I'm really disappointed. I'm wondering whether it's my price. Do I need to drop my price? Do I need to change my program? Am I, whatever, a whole list of reasons that this person may have said no." And whilst today I don't want to get into a deep dive analysis on why prospects say no, because in short, it usually comes down to timing and factors outside of your control with where the prospect is concerned. Or when we think about the things that are in your control, it is usually communication of value and not price, and just getting better at communicating value, which is something that you will just get better at as you learn the skills of selling. If we park those things for just a moment, I want this conversation to be more about what happens when you do hear that no, because you're only going to get better at managing those 2 elements of a sales conversation, the things you can control and the things that you can't control. You're only going to get better at managing those and commit to mastering the strategies for dealing with those outcomes if you keep moving forward. And what typically happens is that I witness wellness experts who are passionate about what they do, want to do this work, but get a few no's in a row and get disheartened, and therefore stop putting themselves out there, stop selling their service, and cannot therefore sustain a business. So today's episode is about you understanding how to process, how to emotionally process, and also, practically process hearing a no when you're selling for not only the first time, but in the early stages of building your business. And the first thing to remember is there's sort of an inevitability about getting a no. Not every prospect, not every ideal client is going to convert then and there. The sooner that you can accept that you're going to hear no, the sooner you can stop feeling surprised by it or defaulting to an assumption that you're always going to hear no. And those are typically the things that happen. You feel the weight of disappointment and therefore you stop selling, or you start to create a story that you're not good at selling. Or we create this default view that people say no to me, and therefore it's an exception when somebody says yes. And we want to flip that script. In normalizing the possibility that you hear no, I want you to build the muscle through continued affirmation, reminding yourself that it's okay to hear no, that people still say yes to you. I remember the first coach that I ever worked with on business strategy. She started her business as a life coach, and I remember her sharing her early experiences of converting or selling to clients. And I remember her sharing as a very aspirational and inspirational message to me as a very new coach working with clients for the first time myself, that her experience had been that before she got her first yes, she had had 54 no's in a row. 54 people had said no before one person said yes. And what that demonstrated for me is that although I'd seen it and heard it spoken about many times, it really does require this entrepreneurship thing, this business owner thing. It really does require an enormous level of determination and resilience. In hearing no, you will face a crossroads, and that crossroads will be the path of disappointment, disillusionment, and a story that says you're not good enough. Everyone says no to you. Nobody wants your product. It's too expensive. It's not the right solution. And, going down that path is not all bad. Some of it is good in terms of constructive reflection. Is there something that you need to tweak about your pricing or your program? But for the most part, the more empowering path to go down, in which you can also engage in that constructive thinking, is the path of commitment to growth, commitment to getting better, commitment to continuing to do the thing that you are passionate about, continuing to put this work that you're so passionate about into the world, in the knowledge that eventually someone is going to say yes to you. And that attitude is the more empowering one to have, that people say yes to me. When you get on a sales call the next time, it's about getting out of your head in this story that the last person said no to me, so this person's probably going to say no too, and getting back into this energy of service, that this person needs my work, that I am good at what I do, that I believe in the work that I do, that the transformation that I provide is life-changing, and that this person is going to say yes to me, knowing that you have the resilience, and that resilience muscle is building over time, that if you do get a no or a no, not right now, and this goes nicely into the next thing that I want you to remember, that no is not a personal reflection or a personal rejection that you're experiencing in that moment. And just on that point, the reason that it is not a personal rejection is because, and this is something I teach and I really emphasize to my clients, is because your value as an expert is a reflection of your expertise, the value that your expertise provides to somebody. Your value is not a reflection of your self-worth. And when you can separate those things, differentiate those things, and know that your self-worth stands alone and will never be measurable or quantifiable with a price point, and you can see your expertise as simply a service in a marketplace, in a dynamic marketplace where some people will buy and some people won't, where you will be the right fit for some people and you will not be the right fit for others, you can remove some of or extract some of that emotion from that feeling of rejection when somebody says no. They just don't want to buy your service right now. They don't dislike you. It doesn't need to be a story about personal rejection. And that's a really important thing to learn as you go through this journey of selling yourself as a service. Okay, so let's talk about what no can actually mean. And this is the second thing that I want you to remember. No, when you conclude a sales call, no, it's not the right time for me, or no, that price is not the right price for me, means a bunch of different things. What it doesn't mean is no, never. And this is an important thing that I want to emphasize. When a prospect says no, it doesn't mean no, never. In fact, what it means is no, not right now. And when you understand this, you also start to understand the importance of timing and nurturing. So marketing and selling is not just about one interaction. It is about many interactions. And I'll share an example with you to bring this to life. In many, many instances, I have had clients who have bought my programs or who have signed up to work with me one-to-one in a one-to-one client capacity, who we have spoken several times, who may have inquired several years ago about working with me, who may have come into my world, be that through downloading a free resource or listening to my podcast or coming to an event when when I hosted events through my well-to-do business, and has been following me and my journey for, in some cases, several years. In one particular example, I had a client join my program, and she and I had met 5 years prior. We'd met for a coffee in the very first stages of me building my business, and it just hadn't been the right time for her at that point in her life to get my support on that level. But 5 years had passed, things had changed. I had continued putting my work out into the world, undeterred by her no at the time, undeterred by it not being the right fit at the right time, and as a consequence, had continued to nurture that relationship so that when the timing was right, I was there and ready. And that's what I want you to remember, is that your job is just one part of the transaction. Your job is to present the service. Your job is to come to that conversation with enthusiasm and passion and certainty and confidence that you can and want to help that person. But you can't also control the other side of the equation. There is another human being taking part in that conversation who needs to consider their own personal situation and timings and so on. Okay. And there are ways that we can improve the quality of that person on the other side of that equation in terms of their readiness. That's another episode where we'll talk a little bit about how to better qualify your prospects so that you are speaking to someone who is more likely to be ready. But that's a separate conversation. Irrespective of how ready they say they are when they speak to you, it never guarantees a yes. Okay, so no, not now means it may be sometime in the future that prospect continues to work with you. And for that reason, I would always encourage you to follow up with a prospect after you've had a conversation. Even when they say no problem. I look forward to working with you at some point in the future, if and when the time is right. Keep going. You have got this. I remember the first coach that I ever worked with who, she started out as a life coach, and she told me that when she first started selling her service, she received 54 no's in a row before she got a yes. And what it created in her was an insatiable hunger for improvement. Her learning from those no's was, I've got to keep going until I get a yes. I'm going to keep refining. It is that growth mindset, that commitment to resilience, to continually bettering yourself, to improving even just 1% each day that you need to do and commit to as an entrepreneur. The founder of Peloton talks about, how when he went out into the market with this idea for a stationary bike that had an on-demand software attached to it, with an ongoing commitment, he got rejection after rejection. There's no way that people are going to buy a stationary bike and then commit to paying ongoing fees in order to use it. There is no way. He talks about having received over 1,000 rejections. Over 1,000 rejections. Think about that for a moment, right? If you've had one rejection, I know you feel disappointed, and I don't in any way want to downplay that emotion that you're experiencing. But I do want to remind you that you will hear no. You will experience rejection, and it is up to you to decide what the story is that you are going to tell yourself about that no. You want to hear no. No is what refines you. No is what builds your character. No is what improves you as an expert in the marketplace. No teaches you so much about how to get better and better and better. Better at selling, better at communicating your value, better at showing up, better at having those conversations. No is an opportunity for growth. And John Foley, the founder of Peloton, talks about that experience as being the most critical part of the journey, that it helped him to refine things, that it helped him to get better at communicating, that it helped him to go back to the drawing board and make Peloton the global brand that it is today. Not without its challenges, I'll admit. It has been a little bit of a tumultuous journey for Peloton as a business, but that is a story for another day. So resilience, resilience, resilience. The third thing that I want you to remember is that when you're first starting out, you are taking action from a place of trust, almost a place of faith, a blind faith. You do not have the evidence yet that this is going to work. It's why my clients love being inside my programs. Consistent Clients is a program where you have 6 months of support and coaching, where you're inside a group, a Facebook group with other experts who are going through this journey. It's helpful because when you get that no, you have no evidence to support the fact that this is going to be a success. So every part of your mind and body and primal instinct screams, run, right? Run from this. This is dangerous. This is too uncomfortable. Things aren't working for you. We need to go back to some safe place. And you know this, you're an expert in this space. You deal with people making scary changes all the time. So observing that about yourself in these moments is really helpful as well. That when you're building a business and when you're first starting out and you're getting better at sales and you hear no, and maybe you hear no again, and maybe you hear no again, and imagine that, 54 times in a row. I hope that's not what's going to happen for you, but let's just say that it does. You need to have faith that things are going to work out for you. You do not yet have evidence that what you're creating is going to sell. So with this in mind, the invitation for you is to trust the process. Surround yourself with, people who have been on this journey before. The guests on my podcast are such a great example of that. So many of them share their stories of rejection and failure and having to get back up after things haven't worked out for them. And this is just an opportunity for that. If you hear no, it is just an opportunity for you to build another level of trust in yourself. And when you kind of get out of your own head and instead focus on the work that you are doing and the fact that it is so needed in the world right now, that people are more stressed, more impacted by lifestyle disease, more lonely, more anxious than ever before, then it's much easier for you to remember the vision and the reason why you're doing this, and to get out of that negative cycle of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and all of those things that we all experience. And to remember that the work that you're doing is important and that you need to just keep going. So with that in mind, those 3 things are what I'd love for you to remember when you hear no. That no is inevitable. That no doesn't mean no never. No just means no, not right now. And that no is an opportunity for growth, for building of that resilience, and for building a new layer of trust that you've got this and that you just need to keep going. I hope that this episode has been helpful, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode.